something important to this story is happening elsewhere. I'm taking you across the country to America's other coast, to Marina del Rey, part of the metropolitan sprawl of Los Angeles. It's summer 1974. We're outside a building that looks like a warehouse, the new offices of National Telefilm Associates, known as NTA. A convertible T-Bird pulls up out front, hunter green with a lion hood on it. The man getting out of this beautiful automobile is Bernie Kadada, president of NTA. He doesn't know it yet, but he and his team are about to be part of the biggest whoops in American cinematic history.
Bernie Kadada is my uncle. I'm a filmmaker. I was there, between projects. I was editing various projects for my Uncle Vern.
This is Jerry Sindel, then a young, up-and-coming independent filmmaker working for his uncle while making cult film classic Teenager.
When I moved to L.A., Bernie helped me get my first job in the film business. That's how come I ended up in the film. And I lived with him for the first few months I came out to California. NTA was probably the largest single owner of movies that ran on television stations around the country. So if you were anywhere in the U.S. watching movies after a certain hour, after midnight, the movies that were running all came from NTA. There was a fairly large legal team at NTA because they had thousands and thousands of copyrights to manage. The in-house counsel was a guy named Lipton. His daughter was Peggy Lipton, who was on the television show.
If you're not of the age to be familiar with Peggy Lipton, the actress, and her hit show that had just wrapped up at the time, The Mod Squad, then you're probably of the age to be familiar with Peggy's actress daughters with musician Quincy Jones, Kadada and Rashida Jones.
Every time she laughs, an angel dies.
At this moment, they had just taken over a large warehouse in Marina del Rey. The offices were in front. At some point, Bernie made a deal with Cary Grant. And there was I think Bernie must have handed him a check for $1 million at some point. And a picture of that was on Bernie's wall. There was Lipton running legal. I was in the end of the front third of the building. Was my cutting room, which when I walked out of it, I walked into the warehouse. That was the two-thirds that was occupied by racks of films. It was a bustling, busy place. So the one end, there was a toe in the water of glamorous Hollywood. And the back end was the real world of, shipping and renting out movies in bulk. That was the vibe. I was just there during a year, and I remember listening to the Watergate hearings at lunchtime.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
Steve knew every important film that NTA had in the warehouse there. And I said, what should I see? So he said, this is a film that Frank Capra made called It's a Wonderful Life, and we just struck a new print of it. You should run it. And I sat down in a screening room by myself, a 35-millimeter projector, and ran that film reel by reel by reel by reel. And it just was an overwhelming, unbelievable experience. And I was like, oh my God, this is a masterpiece. And there I am sitting with this thing in a staggeringly gorgeous print. It was an incredible experience, one of the best experiences of my life, certainly as a filmmaker.
And it was around this time that the future grandfather of Rashida Jones and his legal team somehow, some way, simply overlooked the renewal of one of their movies with the U.S. Copyright Office. Quietly, without much notice, Wonderful Life seemed to have slipped for the first time, as if by magic, out of the hands of ownership of any corporation and into the legal public domain. It was suddenly widely understood to be the property of you and all the people. Early that December, the programmer at an Allentown, Pennsylvania television station abruptly swaps it in to replace the scheduled airing of a Jimmy Cagney movie. Other stations around the country began to follow suit, and Bernie Kadada, who is Jewish but loves Christmas and goes caroling each year with Bob Hope, never mentions a word about what happened with Wonderful Life. This is his son, John.
My father put it close to the vest. Never mentioned a word about it. Because I say my father was sort of tight-lipped about personal stuff.
It may have been Lipton's responsibility because that was his department managing copyrights. I do not know why in the world did they strike this gorgeous new print at the same time they were losing the copyright. It doesn't make sense. There's something going on with that.
As far as what became of Bernie...
Well, I think he wanted to make a good movie and never quite realized that dream. I think he was proud of what he did at NTA. It was sort of pioneering work. But he didn't like being in the distribution business. He wanted to be in production. But I think in film business, you have to risk it all to be successful. You can't dab your toe in the water.
But Frank Capra did risk it all when he went all in on Wonderful Life to start his company, Liberty Films. It failed, and his dream of independence died with it. I will take you much closer to that in a future episode, but thanks in part to Bernie Kadada and Rashida Jones.